Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is going to be a real short video tonight. Just wanted to do a general overview of like what the macro market situation is looking like for anybody who doesn't know. If you don't follow any channels that kind of cover the wider bird's eye view at all. So what we got right here on the chart right now, Bitcoin, the index going back all the way to the beginning. On the weekly chart, I turned off most of Market Cipher up here in the the chart window here. And what we have is this little ribbon right here is the bull market support band. If you don't know what that is, we can even come in here. It's the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, exponential moving average, simple moving average. And it's generally said that, when you get a cross, you get like a golden cross or a death cross if it's coming to the downside. And it's supposed to generally kind of signify bull market, bear market situation. More so than going just only off the crosses. Like obviously you could see here we had a cross and another cross and we just kind of dipped below and back up. I did find support right there, but kind of irrelevant at the moment. The big one is obviously this big downtrend we're in right now, where, we basically took a bounce off the support band to the downside, so got rejected. And if you wanted to look back, oh, by the way, I thought I'd throw this in there as well. If the chart looks a little bit different, that is because this is actually the linear scale chart. And I know a lot of people, myself included, probably don't actually look at this chart all that often. I generally keep it on logarithmic like all the time, and I'm sure most of you probably do as well. And it's interesting just to look at this just for some different perspective, just to see, where we're really at in the history of Bitcoin. If I were to open up this window and hide everything and all you saw were the candles, you might look at this and think like this was some altcoin that had a big old pump and a little bit of a rebound pump, and that was it. And you might be thinking about your opinion or your next moves on that particular coin maybe a little differently than you do with Bitcoin in general, largely based off of fundamentals and history and all that good stuff. But looking at it just like this kind of puts it in a little perspective for you. I mean, obviously this last bull market was just a gigantic pump, and you can see how much we've already came back, put in a new low right there. So it's interesting. Now obviously we have some bigger levels haven't quite hit yet. We got the previous all-time high down here, which this blue line I'll throw in there is the 200-week simple moving average, and that one is oftentimes regarded as like the bottom of a bear market. And when you come and hopefully bounce off of that, if you break through, then it's kind of, oh shit, everybody's gonna panic and you're in uncharted territory. But for the most part, that is like the big line in the sand that everybody generally draws. And then of course at this point we would have to break through that just to get to the previous all-time high of the last bull market right there. So you can figure this guy's still going to keep coming up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as we approach these. And I say as we approach them as opposed to if we approach them, mostly because I feel like we're not quite all the way down just yet. Looking over here on Market Cipher, you could see money flow been coming down for a little bit, still going to the downside, just barely into the red. Really haven't even been there that long. Zoom in a little bit here for you. You can see what's kind of going on with that. VWAP, yeah, it's heading back up, but that really doesn't mean much yet. Headed back up here, got rejected, stayed below for a while. You know, we're heading back here. Ended up extending for a little bit. So you never quite know what's going to happen. So it's kind of a don't count your chickens before they hatch situation with the VWAP on a large time frame like that. But just wanted to zoom out and take a wider look. So, you know, every once in a while it's good to keep it in perspective and be like, all right, where exactly the hell are we in the grand scheme of things? You know, looking at this right here is kind of interesting. You can see on the momentum waves, again, still on the linear scale chart here, but you can see, you know, oh crap, let me get it. You see bull market, bull market, bull market, and just looking at the differences between them. You know, obviously we don't really have money flow data back here. If I had to guess, I'd say, you know, something like that. But this general decrease is kind of interesting. I'm not going to read too much into that, but kind of interesting. Because I don't know 100% how that's calculated. Obviously, there's going to be more money involved in Bitcoin and in crypto over here than there was all the way back here. But it's interesting to note. I mean, if you were to look at this, and this is potentially a scary thing that I almost don't even want to point out, but if you were to look at this, you know, let me grab an actual line here. If you were to see this on any other chart, you know, what would you call that? We'd be calling that bearish divergence right there. So kind of a freaky thought, not trying to scare everybody or anything like that, but again, just give yourself some realistic perspective. You know, it could just be a representation of diminishing returns. You know, this could potentially, man, it never gives it to me. This could potentially come down and then come like, oh, that was a little unrealistic. Could come down and maybe do something like this in future bull markets. And even though these momentum waves are decreasing, you know, up here we might still see, you know, new all-time highs and so on and so forth. But it's, I find that interesting, because if this were on a smaller time frame chart, you know, you'd feel a certain kind of way about it. And that way is pretty much downward. Also keep in mind, you know, money flow curving down. You know, larger grand scheme of things, obviously, between this bull market and this bear market, we didn't even get close to the zero line. I'd honestly hate to see what, you know, red money flow would look like on a monthly chart. God, that'd be atrocious. I mean, we'd be like down here or something. So we're not even going to talk about that. Don't even want to jinx it. That's just awful. But again, RSI is pointing down, momentum, you know, clipping a little bit, but still basically heading down. VWAP still trending downward. So as far as monthly goes, it makes you think that, you know, maybe it's got a little bit more to go. Over here on the DBSI, you know, 15. Fairly strong number to the downside. Like here, you know, 14, 17, 18. Generally, when you're seeing 15s, you at least get like a couple candles, but again, a lot can happen in a month, so you know, nothing's set in stone quite at that point. Just come back to the weekly here now that we got Market Cipher A on. Still feeling the after effects of the blood diamond right there. Just for some perspective, at least for this chart, first blood diamond ever on a weekly. Can't be a good sign. So we'll see. It's looking quite similar to this situation at the moment. You know, where we had the big dip, bounce back up a little bit. We're still generally kind of heading down. Got very similar situation right here so far. And if it does, like at this point, the one thing I would be looking for, how we put a lower low right there, but on say a daily time frame or something like that, if we started getting, you know, some bullish divergence, that would be a good sign that we might be reversing. Still too soon for that though. Turn the support band back on. Over here to the daily just to get a closer look here. But if we go back in time, so keep in mind what we've been seeing here. Dip below, came back, bounced off. The last times we really saw, you know, dip below and then bounced off, we had one here. Granted, came back up a little bit, but saw the end of this little mini bear market. Previous times, you know, a whole bunch of bounces off right there. That was the entire bear market. Had another similar situation all the way back here. A little bit more jagged right here, but again, bear market. So it's not a far stretch to say that we are in a bear market right now. You know, even if it doesn't last, let's see. Like if we called this one to the bottom, we got 353 days. We're already at 200. You know, we could pretty much just go a little bit down and sideways for a little while here. And by the time it starts heading back up, you know, if we start doing this, by the time it starts heading back up, people are going to be like, yep, that was the bear market. Bear market's over. But it's always going to be a contentious decision when you're in the midst of it, whether or not people even want to call it that. And the fact that we didn't really get, you know, the expected blow off top, and we just kind of had the little rollovers, makes people feel all up in the air and unsure about whether or not that's the top, and you know how anybody wants to call that. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you call it. And again, brings me back to the good part about trading is bull market, bear market. I mean, yeah, maybe you're leaning a little heavier on the shorts over here and a little heavier on the longs over here, but other than that, trading's trading. But again, 200 week moving average right there, still a little ways away. And again, this is back to the logarithmic chart here, probably looking a little bit more familiar. But we just got some wicked sideways action going on lately. And that's the daily chart. I mean, what is this? 13 days, so pretty much 2 weeks going sideways. Been a little interesting. Today was actually not too bad. Today was a pretty good scalping day. Let's see. You know, I had these nice just up and down movement. A little 1.5, 1.5. A little shy of 1.5. A little more than 1.5. So, you know, if you're around and paying attention, or if you're doing day trading at home or something like that, today would have been a pretty decent day to just squeeze out some little scalps here and there. Just fairly relaxing day. But as far as down here, like on Market Cipher B, I was watching this one on and off every once in a while when I came back to my desk taking a look at it, you know, money flow wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot. Generally speaking, you know, momentum, you know, after this point right here, never really had any big swings. You know, RSI was just bouncing around sideways. But look at the VWAP. I mean, if you were doing like mechanical robot trading today, all right, coming back, my bad, I had to take a phone call there. But just to kind of finish up a little bit, wanted to touch on these as well. So real quick, I brought up the Bitcoin log curve zones indicator, and as you can see, it gives you the 3 zones with a couple little like extension lines on the bottom and a couple other little log curves going through there. But you know, you could kind of consider like the green being a like a oversold, overbought, and then maybe like a fair value kind of mean in the middle type zone right there. It's an okay indicator. It's not quite my favorite though, but just looking at it kind of gives you an idea here where we've already broken down to that second extra red line below there. As you can see, it's not very often that we actually get down to that. Hard to look down there, but you know, hit off the first one there. Obviously broke through on the COVID dip there, but one that I like a little bit more here. This is basically, from what I can tell, a reproduction of what's his name, Benjamin Cohen, Into the Cryptoverse. He has one like this on whatever his premium membership type deal is. This one seems to be pretty close. Maybe not exactly the same, but kind of have like a fair value and, you know, way overpriced bands right there, and then like a median down the middle. And looking at this one, you can kind of see where we're at the moment. Try to make it bigger for everybody watching on the phone. You can see we're right about in the middle of the fair value price band down here. So if nothing else, I mean, it's a good sign for people who like to do, you know, DCA, if you're dollar cost averaging your buy-ins. You know, it's at a decent little spot right here. I mean, whether or not we make it down to the bottom of the band right there would obviously be a better price to be buying at, but that's kind of the point of dollar cost averaging, is if you're, you know, buying at multiple points, eventually you end up with like a average price that's, you know, in the middle, depending on how much you're buying each time. And last but not least, I'll wrap it up with this, the Bitcoin rainbow chart. If you don't know where this is from, I did actually make a video about this. Let's see if we can zoom it in a little bit. There we go. And you can see it's got the nice little categories here for you. But it looks like we are now into the buy band right there. Technically, it looks like we're probably going to accumulate, but we're kind of bouncing around right on the border between accumulate and buy. And if we do get down into the blue zone, basically a fire sale at that point, I know I myself as well will probably be looking to buy at that point. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on, you know, how things are looking, what I'm seeing with Market Cipher and everything like that. But, you know, looking back through history here, you know, every time we are in that blue zone, you know, COVID dipped a little bit below, but again, then you're pushing your luck trying to buy the absolute bottom, trying to catch the fallen knife, if you will. But every time we are into that blue band, it has historically been, you know, the bottom of that logarithmic curve. So keep an eye on this. If you want to know where this is, it's blockchaincenter.net/en/bitcoin-rainbow-chart. And I'll throw a link in the description, as well as you can always go back and check out the older video that I did. I talked about bull market support band, I think, and these logarithmic curves and the rainbow chart, all that all in one video. This is just basically an update on, you know, what the price is looking like in relation to these. And, you know, I'll cap it off real quick with a look at Market Cipher. And again, you know, money flow coming down into the red. The biggest, most important thing, RSI's a little bit of weakness as they're still split. You know, we're kind of heading sideways there for a quick minute, but now we're pointed back to the downside. Momentum pointed back to the downside. You know, 5-day money flow came up, never did break into the green, got rejected, started coming back down. VWAP did start curving out, and we are not yet over the zero line, but it's damn close. What are we at? Negative 0.14. And again, this is from like a 0 to 100 scale, so to be 0.14 is almost exactly on the zero line, just a hair below it. I mean, if I were to zoom up, you still can't even really tell. So we're potentially imminently going over the zero line unless we get rejected. And I'd say there is some validity to that. You know, RSI's pulled back together, pointed to the downside, flipped to the green. Again, money flow heading down. We're kind of clipping over here on the momentum wave, but if this did get rejected and RSI did continue to the downside, money flow did continue to the downside, I'd probably expect maybe another little hump out of that momentum wave right there. 3-day, you know, deep money flow. Pop back up a little bit, but again, that's basically just up into the sideways action we've been seeing. RSI basically reflects that, kind of going sideways. VWAP curving back over to the side. 2-day. You know, you can see, you can kind of call it this, or basically, you know, potentially this action we could see money flow come back to increasing, which would be the bullish case, if you will. Again, RSI is kind of going sideways, fairly steady, not increasing or decreasing in that distance between them. Pop back over to the daily, more sideways. You know, sideways above zero on the VWAP is kind of trending downward a little bit. We'll see what happens if we do finally take that move to the downside right there. But the big killer is that wicked down slope on the money flow, still continuing to go down. If it does continue, I mean, we're almost at the peak of the previous one, so we'll see how much further it really has to go. And if you kind of keep this in mind, so you know, we were going down as money flow was going down. It could potentially be, you know, the bottom right in this area, and we're kind of just going sideways as this starts to make the turn. And rather than having a bounce back to the upside, you know, that money flow is just holding it steady. It's, you know, it's not going down, it's not going up. If anything, it's preventing it from going up. But we'll see. We're starting to get a little bit of curvature over here on the momentum. You know, hopefully this does continue back up. But I'm going to leave it at that. I'll keep it on the daily. You know, if we turn Market Cipher A back on, just to give you a closer look here on the daily. You know, 16 to the bullish side. Some potential good news on that. You know, I have our ribbon coming down right here, which is basically just the top and the bottom of the ribbon that I have everything else hidden. We keep bouncing off of it. You know, with this 16, hopefully we can catch a break on the money flow and maybe break above, get back out of this rut that we've been in, just riding below the ribbon for quite a while now. So it's going to be kind of a pivotal time here over the rest of the week, maybe into next week, where, you know, these averages are going to be coming down. Candles are coming up to meet them. We'll see if we take a bounce off to the downside or if we break through. So we shall see. It could potentially be the end of the downtrend, or, you know, we got one more little last leg going down. Time shall tell. But I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully this was informative. Gave you an idea of where things are at in the larger scheme of things. And let me know what you thought. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Remember, keep being a badass, and life's too short. Don't stress out. You may see red candles, but it's gonna be all right. If it makes you nervous and your portfolio is going down, well, learn to short. Later.